Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are all having a good morning. A couple days ago, Mr. DuBose came up to me and asked me if I would speak to you guys for chapel, pretty much the seventh and up. And I was a little nervous at first and hesitant, mainly because I've never really have spoken in front of a camera before. I've spoken in front of people, but in front of a camera is a little bit different. So I didn't really know what to speak about, but he just told me to kind of talk about my life and my testimony. So I'm not gonna give you guys a crazy topic or anything like that. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about my life. So we're gonna start when I was younger, when I was little. I was a very shy kid. Grew up in a Christian home. Grew up listening to Christian music and pretty much hearing John 3:16 every day, things like that. Knowing all the Bible stories. Um, when I was younger, mainly I was shy. Like I said, I wasn't really like kind of scared to talk to people, but I was just more to myself. I didn't really feel the need to kind of speak up or anything like that. Um, Let me see. I didn't really also believe like much in the word. I mainly kind of believed it just because my parents were the pastors, like I said. So I was just kind of going through the motions, like church on Sundays, but kind of going through the motion during the week. And I thought because my parents were pastors and because they were Christians, I could kind of live my life and do whatever I wanted. So I could go out, lie, do whatever, hang out with my friends. And then if I were to sin, in my mind, I was taking advantage of God's mercy and God's forgivingness, because I would just kind of be like, oh, my parents are pastors. God will forgive me. It's fine. I don't really got to worry about anything like that. If you guys see me looking down, by the way, it's just because I have my notes right here. I wouldn't really read the Bible when I was younger. I would just kind of take it for granted. And the Bible stories, I would just kind of, listen to the things and just ignore them. Like, oh yeah, Jesus died for me, whatever. Like he rose on the third day, Noah's Ark, things like that. I just kind of took it for granted. As I got older, I went to a youth encounter or a youth retreat at my church. And I pretty much have gone to those 100 times because my parents were pastors, so I was kind of forced to go. And on this specific one, it was a little different, mainly because I didn't really want to go, just because in my mind I had thought that I already kind of knew everything about God, and I kind of already, like, I already knew what to expect. Like, I knew how things were ran and things like that, like all the teachings. But on this one, I went, but instead of going to kind of like help out, I was going to pretty much receive and pretty much to listen to what the speakers had to say. So I remember around, I think it was like 13, 14 years old. I remember I was sitting in the front row. Then the pastor started giving a teaching, and the verse that he used was Romans 12:9 that I have here. And in Romans 12:9 it says, because if you, and he really put the emphasis on you, because it doesn't say because if your parents, because if your mom, your dad, your sister. It says because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, then you will be saved. And he really put the emphasis on you and your heart and that you will be saved. And that really like stuck out to me because the past 13, 14 years, however old I was living my life as if I was okay. I was going to heaven no matter what happened because, my parents are the pastors. My parents are amazing people. I'm a pretty good person, so I don't really need to kind of follow into those, that spiritual life with God because my parents already did it. My sister already did it. So I didn't feel the need that I had to also. And also, like I said, I was a very shy kid. So I would kind of keep things to myself. I wouldn't really, talk to my parents about like my spiritual life. I always thought it was weird, mainly because they were pastors, but they were also my parents. So I would just kind of keep things to myself. And I also didn't really like speaking in front of people. I know now I'm pretty like easy to kind of have a conversation with. But I remember the crazy story when I was in high school. I went to El Salvador with my soccer team. We went to a mission trip. And on that mission trip, the coach said that everyone is going to give pretty much a short like 5 to 10 minute teaching or share their testimony like I'm doing now. But the thing is, we would go to like an orphanage or like a school or hospitals, and everyone had to pretty much say their testimony. But every place that we went to, there was only like 20, 30, max like 50 people to like you'd have to talk to. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, like hopefully I'll get a good like 20 people, not that many, because I don't really like talking in front of people. And I remember we went to a school, and when the coach told me it was my turn to speak, I was like, okay, like how many people are we working with? How many people do I have to speak in front of? Thinking I'm gonna do like one grade, like one class, like maybe 10th grade, 11th grade. And he says, no, you're doing the whole high school. And I was like, okay, well, how many people is that? And then he told me over 400 students. And when I tell you, I freaked out. I literally almost threw up like right there on the spot. I was like, how in the world am I supposed to speak in front of 400 people when I could barely speak to my parents about my own spiritual life? And I was just like, oh my goodness. I started like freaking out. You know, kind of when you freak out, your heart starts like racing. You get a little sweaty. You get like a little like, you don't really know what to do. Your heart's pounding. So I remember the coach called me up on the stage. I walked up, and instantly when I grabbed the mic and got there, I felt like such a peace, and like I was just relaxed. And for some reason, like my heart like wasn't like really beating out of my chest. I was just very relaxed. And I was a little confused at first, but I just kind of went with it, and I spoke for a couple minutes, and then I finished. And then once I finished there, I realized that God has, the ability to change things in your life, or things that you may have been used to, or things that you kind of define yourself as. Because I used to define myself as a shy, quiet kid, but clearly God had other plans on me being able to speak in front of people and having the confidence and courage to speak to a bunch of young adults. Let me see. And then also I started reading my Bible. Like I said, the Bible I used to take for granted. I would just kind of read the stories and, okay, I already know what happened. Like, God died, or Jesus died for me on the cross. He rose on the third day, things like that. But if you really look into the Bible, now as I'm starting to read it more and more, like as I get older, these Bible stories are just insane. Like they're crazy. Like if you really look at the Bible stories, these must have been like, these people were like so in love with God that they did not care what they looked like to other people. They did not care what other people thought of them. Like if you really go in depth, and let's do Noah's Ark, for example. You know how crazy Noah must have looked to be able to build I checked, I looked it up, and it's a 500-foot ark, a boat, pretty much 500-foot boat. He was running around the streets like crazy, pretty much saying, there's going to be rain, it's going to flood, we need to build this boat because God told me to. Keep in mind, it had never rained before. That they don't even know what rain is. He was like, it's going to rain, and they're all like, what's rain? Water is going to fall from the sky, it's going to flood, we need a boat to be prepared. And let's put that in now. Let's put that in like nowadays. Let's see if like things like that were to happen. I'll use one of you for example. Let's hope Preston is paying attention. I'm gonna use you. Let's say Preston comes to school one day, and he goes to you guys. He goes in the group and he's like, guys, we need to go to Home Depot after this, get as much wood as possible because we need to build a boat. Why? Why do you need to do that? Because it's gonna flood in 2 months, and we need to build a boat. How big? 500 feet. I would just be like, me personally, I would be like, Preston, like, okay, like, you're a little crazy, man. Like, I mean, you can go for it, but I'm not going to help you. I'll just kind of watch you from the side. Like, these people must have looked crazy. Like, that's how it would look nowadays. Imagine back then when it had never rained before. We at least know what rain is. Another story, for example, Moses parting the Red Sea. I know a couple of you guys, let's put that again, like nowadays. A couple of you guys have gone to, like, beach trips. So imagine... I'll give another person like Esteban. Imagine Esteban on one of these beach trips. He just steps onto the sand, raises his hand, and then out of nowhere, the sea just opens up. You know how crazy that must have been? Like, I feel like nowadays, these Bible stories have just been like babied down a little bit. Like today's society kind of just makes them like they're not a big deal. But this is like insane stuff. Like not only did he just part the Red Sea, but the water that they walked through was dry. It wasn't like that muddy sand that every time you take a step it was like mushy and like you would get stuck in it. It was perfectly dry. And keep in mind, the sea, it's not a little river that he opened. It wasn't a pool. It was a sea that goes on for miles and miles and miles, that they walked through it all the way and had the faith to walk through it, and it wouldn't collapse on them. As they're walking, they just see the fishes, the sharks, the whales, all those animals just swimming past them. Like that must have been insane. Let me see. So, as I'm gonna start like closing up, I didn't want to take up too much of your time. I know a couple of you guys are tired, and it's cold. I'm freezing up here, by the way. But as we're closing, if you guys may have come in late or anything, and if maybe you weren't paying attention, I just want you to at least take this with you, that if whether you were born a Christian in a Christian home or not, or maybe if you consider yourself a Christian or not, no one is going to make that decision of accepting Jesus, but you have to make that decision. And you guys are at the age right now. I'm doing, I believe, 7th grade and up to 12. So you guys are around that age. You guys are at that age where the decisions you make now are going to impact and pretty much set your future. So if you make bad decisions now, that's really going to mess you up in the future. If you make the good decisions now, that'll help your future. So you just got to be smart with that and wise with that. And remember, you guys got to make the decision. It doesn't matter about your parents. It doesn't matter about your friends. Just because you go to a Christian school and you hang around Christian people, that doesn't mean that you yourself will go to heaven. So you just need to make that decision yourself. So I encourage you guys to take that step of faith if you're kind of hesitant. And so we're just going to end in a quick word of prayer. Now that I'm finishing up, I didn't want to take too much of your time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it and paid attention. And, hopefully some of you guys could relate. If one of you guys were able to relate to my story, that's fine with me. That's one more than I would hope for. So we're just going to end in a quick word of prayer. So if everyone could just bow their heads. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this morning and for another day of life. Thank you for everything you've done for us and given us. I pray that you just come and reach yourself to these young adults, Father, as they grow older and mature in you and also in life, Father. I pray that we continue on with this week strong and we finish out the year strong in the quarter. I pray that you touch them and you reach out to them and just show yourself to them and let them know that they have to make that decision themselves, and it's not based off of anyone else's decisions or anyone else's life, but them and their own. And I just pray that we finish out this week strong and the year strong. I know it's been a crazy year, but you have been with us every step of the way, and everything happens for a reason. So I pray that we not lose faith and we not lose hope and confidence in you. And like I said, we just finish this week strong. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you again for having me, and yeah.